Stand 2. An hour before dawn, you're stood on the trench fire step with bayonets fixed in anticipation of an attack. Half an hour after dawn, stand down. Rum ration. Strong and fiery, it blows away the cold. You clean your rifles before breakfast, bacon if you're lucky, bully beef and biscuits if not, sweet tea with a tinge of petrol, either way. Next, inspections. Now, as your platoon commander, do not rest unless all is well with your gas helmets, iron rations, rifles, ammunition, and your socks. Dry socks prevent trench foot. Next, daily fatigues. They include digging latrines, sentry duty, bringing up duckboards and grenades up from the rear to the front line. Meal times, lunch around midday, dinner at 1800. Then, an hour before dusk, stand 2 again for an hour. Lots going on now. Wiring parties go out into no man's land to fix the gaps in the wire entanglements. Other patrols head out to assess the enemy's activities and the strength of their defenses. Ration carriers provide various supplies, including water, bread, and tin foods. I don't know why I'm telling you all this. You already know it. You've been living this routine now for how long? Past 2 weeks? 2 weeks now. As you're well aware, we've been suffering a heavy bombardment this morning, and we all know what that means. Pretty soon, we'll be under attack. That's why we're moving from this rest position all the way up to the front line. It's going to be tough, no doubt, but I know you all. I know you all to be brave and resolute. In hard times, I myself look to the good book. My mother's favorite passage was Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid nor terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you, and he shall never leave you nor forsake you. I remember asking her who they were, them who would make me afraid or terrified, and she simply said they could be anyone, and you would surely find out when you're older. I'm glad of her wise words, because she died just before my 7th birthday. She was right. All men have their own fears to overcome, their own enemies to fight. But with the love of God, you too can succeed. You too can overcome. Now, we have a bit of time before hell breaks loose. I'd like to tell you all a bit about myself and what I've come through to be with you here today. I've come through a lot, and you know what? I think we'll get through what lies ahead and be here tomorrow. Now, not sure how many of you felt about early army training, but for me it was like going home. Now, before you feel my father was a tyrant, I must make you aware, unfortunately, he died just before my 9th birthday. And I had to go to the children's home orphanage with my brother, Eddie. I remember the day there started 10 minutes earlier than army training. We had to make our beds and fold the bedclothes just so. We had chores to perform, you see. We had to clean and polish everyone's shoes in the household and scrub and wash the floors of the bathroom as well. As the day wore on, the school timetable and the army training would become as one. I guess you could say I'm used to being told what to do. As I say, in this life, things get taken from you. Parents, comrades, brothers. My brother Edward was adopted by a dentist in Glasgow. I prayed that they would take me also, but they didn't. And I was truly on my own then. I'm thankful, though, for the orphanage. They gave me for an education and an apprenticeship and the opportunity to play football. Now, as you're well aware, I used to be a pro myself. I started from the orphanage and worked my way up to Clapton FC, and then I hit the big time. My home debut for Tottenham was against Manchester United in front of 32,000 fans. It wasn't my best game. I was brought down for a penalty, and we went a 2-2 draw. And then I was demoted to the reserves, and in the reserves I remained and never regained my place in the team. As I say, in this life, things get taken from you. But if you work hard enough, for long enough, as I did, you too can succeed. Now, as a striker then, but it was halfback where I made more than 100 appearances in the Southern League for Northampton Town under the stewardship of Herbert Chapman, and he was good to me. When Britain declared war on Germany in August 1914, the season was about to start. There were many arguments about whether or not it should continue, as it became clear the war wouldn't be over by Christmas, as many people at first thought. The newspapers were full of remarks. One said, "It's a national shame and disgrace that our finest athletes are charging each other on the football fields instead of the Germans on the battlefields." And it wasn't just the players up for scrutiny. A letter in the Times also said that any club who is paying a player is bribing a much-needed recruit to refrain from enlistment, and any spectator paying their money on the gate is directly funding a German victory. And so posters were put up across the land. Perhaps you saw them. Perhaps that's the reason why you enlisted in the first place. Do you want to hear the enemy's roar over in Millwall? Sharpen up you Spurs and shoot, 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 and stop this foul play over in White Hart Lane. Do you want to be a Chelsea diehard over in Stamford Bridge? When I realized they were forming a footballers' battalion, I knew I had to join, and did so in December of 1914. They gave me the number of F-55. Not bad, I suppose, but I would have preferred to have been in the starting 11. It was the 17th Middlesex 1st Football Battalion, 1,600 strong, and when it came to drill, we took to it like a duck to water. Now, we had 40 recruits from Clapton Orient, including the very first, Fred Spider Parker. It wasn't just the first team, it was the backroom staff, the referees, the club officials. We also had 13 of the 17 Brighton Hove players also join. It was felt like the Pals battalion before it, men who came from the same town or city, like Liverpool Pals or Accrington Pals, would be bonded because they came from the same place. But our bond was the love of the game. We also had Vivian Woodward, the two-time Olympic gold medalist for Great Britain. He led a line for Tottenham and Chelsea also. Imagine serving alongside a hero like that. Now, after several months of training in England, we were keen to get to it. And then once we arrived in France, many of the boys should have been resting, but were keen to be in the trenches fighting. We were relieving a Scottish unit when one man said, "Look over there. The enemy is leading 1-0 at half-time. Go on and have a shot at equalising." And boy, did we try. We made the trenches our own. We gave them names. We called that one there Middlesex Walk, and the other Footballers' Avenue. We also received extra socks, candles, peppermint lozenges, all provided to us from the Footballers' Battalion Comforts Fund, paid for by the clubs and donations on game day. But it was also very hard going also. I've come to learn more about lice than I would have liked to, and the mud, and the mustard gas, and the rats, and the rain. And we lost some good men too. Vivian Woodward was shot early on in the thigh with grenade shrapnel. Corporal Ben Butler of Queen's Park Rangers knew he'd never play football again when his thigh was shattered. 10 days later, he died of his wounds. He was the first professional footballer of the 17th Middlesex to give his life for king and country. I myself, having spent 7 months on the front line with the constant thundering of the guns and the whiz-bangs, was diagnosed with acute mania or shell shock and returned to England. Now, having spent several months in rest and hospital or recuperation, I was declared fit by the Army medical team and returned to France, this time posted with the 23rd Middlesex 2nd Football Battalion, with you lovely lot fighting here on the Somme. Now, last year, on Boxing Day, being given my first official leave, I was surprised to be recommended for a temporary commission by my superior officer, Lieutenant Colonel Haig Brown. Now, I'll be honest, Army regulations do dictate I shouldn't be an officer because I'm not of pure European descent, you see. It's not the first time I've come up against such prejudice. I remember playing for Tottenham against Bristol City. The fans there were abusing me throughout the game. I didn't let it get to me. I simply remembered my mother's wise words. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid nor terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you, and he shall never leave you nor forsake you. I remember also a time my brother Edward came down to Birmingham for a dentistry job. The dentist took one look at him and said, "My God, you're coloured. You'll destroy my practice within 24 hours. Don't worry though, he has a successful practice in Glasgow. I've also heard the Army medical team have used the medical to fail black recruits. It'd be very difficult for them to do so in my case, however. You have to be very fit to play football after all. I've also heard the arguments about courage under fire, how black recruits with weapons would be a greater danger to their comrades instead of the enemy, how they'd be conspicuous on the battlefield, how white soldiers wouldn't take orders from coloured officers, or that black soldiers shouldn't even be in the trenches at all. It sounds like the sort of arguments made on the terraces of Bristol or a dentist in Birmingham. Now, I've always tried to be brave and volunteer wherever I could, and that hadn't gone unnoticed. And so my CO's recommendation did the job for me. I spent several months in Scotland on army officer training, a place even colder than here, would you believe? And although the exam was very difficult, I passed. Now, as a platoon commander, I have to be quick to act, issue real orders, take real command on all at times, and see these orders carried out. As you all know, I wouldn't ask any of you to do anything I wouldn't do myself. Some of you were with me in Italy when we celebrated Christmas Eve by crossing the freezing River Piave on a reconnaissance raid. And also, this year, 1918, we crossed that same river, this time preparing the way for an advanced attack against Austrian and German positions. And we got through that, despite heavy fire, without a single casualty. So that should reassure you. Now, we're about to hit the trench fire step. Upon my whistle, we'll engage the enemy, and you know what to do. Paddle bowlers on. Platoon, attention! By the left, quick march! Here we are, the front line. We've been suffering a heavy bombardment this morning. We've been through that before. It reminds me of a mission I had to inspect a portion of the trench. Sections were being flooded. No man's land was but a mass of shell holes. After the inspection was completed, I made my way to a nearby village. And when you know what? I nearly collapsed. I realized I haven't eaten in 17 hours. A YMCA canteen was my only salvation. There I persuaded a kitchen orderly to prepare me some sausages and tea. Boy, didn't I sleep well that night. Not all the guns in France could wake me. We're about to go through something here. I'm not too sure when any of us will eat or sleep again, but we will stand firm. The Middlesex Regiment are the diehards, and we will live up to our name and our reputation here today. I believe in each and every single one of you. Remember, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid nor terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you, and he shall never leave you nor forsake you. Be brave, my diehards. Be brave.